This is my Quebec City, your city, your stories. Many moons ago, Mead moseyed his way from the US to Canada. From old art to new volunteering, he's built a life of joy and connection, full of good spirit. So Mead, what's your story?
I'm originally from Chicago, and I've been in Quebec for just over 2 years.
You have a Québécois wife from Laval, but you actually met closer to your hometown than hers.
Well, we met in Winnipeg, and I always tell people I must have been a horrible husband because as soon as we got married, she ran off and joined the military. We actually thought that she was going to retire in Winnipeg, but one day she came home and she says, "Oh my gosh, I've been transferred." And we were transferred to Victoria for 13 years. And then one day she came home again and she says, "Oh my gosh, I've been transferred to Quebec." So we've been in Valcartier for 2 years now. When we first got married, I joined one of the military spouse groups, which was called Military Wives. So I was a military wife. And it was only after the second guy joined that they changed it to military spouses.
Well, there you go. So, an artistic, spiritual guy like you, your wife being in the military, on the surface, that seems like an interesting dynamic.
We actually have very similar personalities. She is a musician in the military. Clarinet, bass clarinet, saxophone, and she sings, but not all at once. And she's been bringing her spirit to the military, showing people a different way of being a manager. And this is something that has really resonated in her career. And so many of her coworkers are now emulating her style of leadership. And she's not all that high a rank, but she's got a lot of people who are very much influenced by her spirit.
Well, there I go. Okay, so I just tried on some of the chainmail clothing that you make. Thank you for that, by the way. This is neat. What is it exactly? And how did you get started? Because you were an early pioneer of this.
When I first began, I was working at Renaissance Fair, and a friend of mine came up to me one day and she just said, "I have to teach you how to make chainmail." I said, "Okay." And I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever done. But the mathematics behind it fascinated me. The repetition, the patterning, and math has always been one of my passions. So I decided to see how else could I connect the rings? What other patterns could I create? And at the time, people were only making armor. And to be honest, I have no interest in the armor side of it. So I wanted to do fashion designs, I wanted to do jewelry and art. When I moved to Winnipeg, I had more time to develop my craft. At that point, I started doing a lot more major shows. I was in Vancouver a number of times, back to Chicago, a number of other cities around the States. When we moved to Victoria, I started doing a lot more work with movies and TV shows. So it gave me the opportunity to really move in that direction.
Reading is a great passion of yours, and you've turned that into a really noble, recurring volunteer gig at Dollard-des-Ormeaux School.
One of my favorite things is to read to people. I don't care if they're 90 years old or 3 years old. My wife came home right after giving birth, and she went to sleep, and I was taking care of the baby. And she said she came down a couple hours later and saw me reading this really heavy biography to him in a baby voice. So as soon as I moved here, one of the first things I did was ask about volunteering to read at schools. I read to the 5 and 6-year-olds, and I just have so much fun with it.
Do you see a change in the kids after a few sessions with them, whether it's a love of reading or otherwise?
I do, absolutely. When I first go in, they're very friendly. They all say hi, and they're all happy that someone's reading to them. But literally by the second time, when I first come back, some of them are running up and giving me hugs. And I remember a couple of times I was walking down the street and all of a sudden my leg was attacked by a kid. And the parent was really mortified. And I said, "It's okay. I read to them in school. I know who they are."
When you just need some artistic inspiration or spiritual connection, is there a place locally in particular that you go?
It used to be the woods right behind my house, but the military recently closed the paths, which I was devastated. So now I have to go down to the river by the Shannon Dog Park. I love walking in the woods around there, or even here by the St. Lawrence. Rivers, mountains, forests, anything in nature.